Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome back to the podcast after an 8-month hiatus. And there's been a lot happening in the last 8 months. Coming all the way from Dallas, Texas, the great man, my friend, my colleague, and a person that, let's just say, took the absolute piss out of me when we first met in Las Vegas in person, Mr. Stephen Oommen. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend.
Oh, I appreciate you, man. I can't remember, but did we actually tell that story on the first time I was on? I can't
Yeah,
even
we did, but
remember.
it's 8 months ago, right? So there's been, how many episodes has there been? There's been literally 80 episodes between drinks. So we were in Vegas. I walked into the foyer of the Park MGM, and you were there. I think your wife Stacey was there, and a few others. And Tony Cross, the great man from Growth Matters International, introduced us face to face because we'd seen each other across Zoom and Teams and so forth. And I'll let you pick up the story, but I just literally come off flying all the way from Melbourne. It was 16 hours. My eyeballs are hanging out of my head.
Oh
Am I
my
get greeted
goodness. So
by the great
I,
man,
I
Stephen
don't
Oommen.
I don't even know what made me think to do this because it was just in the moment. And I think I overheard someone talk about your podcast as you were walking up and saying, man, it's crazy. That's Darren. He has his podcast. He's like on 700 episodes, which, if you get past 20, I think you're in the top 1% of the global podcasting industry, right? So it just hit me. So literally as I saw you, I was like, Darren, wait a minute. Are you the Darren Mitchell, like exceptional sales leader podcast, like 700 plus episodes? That's you? You didn't tell me this when we were doing our prep and everything, and your face just lit up like, a child on Christmas morning, like I'd given you the best present, like just validated all your work. And you looked at me and you said, oh my gosh, do you listen to the podcast? And I look you dead in the face and I go, no, man, never heard of it. Your face. Oh, to see the joy go from pure joy to like, I'm going to kill this man. And I just met him. Oh, what a way to start a friendship, man. Oh, that was
But
I'm sorry, not sorry.
no, well, it was really funny. And as I reflect back on it, it becomes funnier. Fast forward a week, and as we were leaving, we hugged each other. So there must be something in that. So it's all good.
Something maybe it was Vegas, so maybe you had a few in you at the time. You're like, let bygones be bygones.
That's
So
it.
and
And of course, what happens in Vegas always stays in Vegas, is what I'm being told.
man, can you believe 8 months? And it's
Yeah,
funny that we're doing this episode because the whole 800th and 24th episode.
yeah.
Um, 8 months. Wow, that's just crazy, man, to think.
Well, it is. And sometimes I stop and I look at the episode number. I'm thinking, man, it feels to me like I'm just getting started. And if I reflect back on when I started, it was when was it? April the 1st, 2020. We were deep in COVID, lockdown, couldn't go anywhere. All my facilitation gigs face to face had been cancelled. Didn't really know what was going on. And I thought, well, I've been wanting to do this podcast thing, so I might as well just pick up the phone and start talking into the microphone, which I did. And that's how I started. And, 5 years later, we're doing today episode 824. And for me, what's been what's been really cathartic is every time I speak to people like you, I get to learn something new and a different perspective around leadership, around human connection, principles that I can take and pay forward to others. And it's just a privilege to be able to talk to great people around the world, and know that there are people who think in a similar way, who's always trying to elevate people's capabilities and an industry. So, yeah, it's been a journey. Having said that, I mean, there's some that you feel like you're trying to drag answers out of. It's like pulling teeth, as we say in Australia. But for the most part, it's been a great experience. And reflecting back on the one that we did in January, it was incredible. So, and we're not going to necessarily talk a lot about the book, but there is a book that's in the. You said there's a draft that's just about completed, so that's coming. And we
Yeah.
did touch on the chameleon effect, which is what the name of. Is it still that name or the working title? It's going to be called that, or is it going to
The
change?
it's so funny because in the very likeness of a chameleon, yes, 90% chance that it is going to change. One thing that you learn in the book writing process is that what your dreams and visions of, when you start to think about market economics, market fit, like what people are attracted to, it may not be what you believed it was. So just
Mm,
like the title chameleon, you have to change and understand the surroundings and whatnot. So yes, I would say 90 plus percent chance that the book title will change. The content will not. I'm going to restructure the book to be a better fit to help people get better at networking,
mhm,
generating warm referrals, and really building a company-wide go-to-network motion.
mm.
As we spoke last time, I'm still a big believer that as we all know, warm referrals is the best type of business to be in, best type of prospecting to do. But I'm just finding out more and more with all the technology, all the tools, all the execution,
Yeah,
people are forgetting how to just connect with people and build their aging myself Rolodex, but just build their connection and build their network. It is a skill that the world desperately needs to learn again.
yeah, yeah. And look, I love the posts you put out and the videos you do, and I know you appear in a lot of other podcasts. You're a speaker as well, and the message is such a powerful one, particularly in an age where technology is forever exponentially increasing, and the likelihood is people can get caught up in the latest and greatest, and this new widget or this new piece of technology or this new application is going to help us fast track our ability to be more relevant to the marketplace. But mate, when it's all said and done, people want to do business with those who they know, they like, they trust, and who they remember. And that starts with, who do I know that I would like to serve, or who would like me, as you wrote recently in a post, who would like me to succeed.
Yes,
So how
that
do I
is
tap
spot
into
on.
that? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's I should leave it at this. I guess that's why somebody's got to buy the book.
That's right. So we're gonna let people know at the end of the episode where they can get hold of you, and no doubt when they do that and they connect with you, you'll put updates up as to when that's going to be available. So we'll do that. Now, for those who have not listened to the episode, which is way back in when was it? January 2025, episode 744. Hence, we're 80 in front now.
Yeah.
Um, just a little bit about your background. I know you've got a background, obviously, in sales and sales leadership. You've been at Microsoft. Just a little bit of a synopsis as we lead into today's conversation, because we're going to be talking about Mamba mentality.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I think it's ode to the 824 for those that don't understand that relation. Kobe Bryant's first number for the first part of his career was 8. The second half of his career was 24, hence 824. Those that are, huge Kobe Bryant fans, they know as 824 as Kobe Day, August 24. So 824 is very, very symbolic. But my background is 25 plus years in go to market in some form or capacity. I've always been in a revenue generating type of role, except for 1 year. I did go become a finance manager and trying to get my CPA. And I was like, yeah, I'm good at numbers, but I don't want to do this for a living. So
Ah,
I did my master's in accounting and MBA and was like, oh, let me see what this is like. And yeah, that did not pan out. So other than that 1 year, I have always been in revenue generating positions, whether it be owning my own companies as an entrepreneur. I've had, I once wrote a post, this was a while ago, where I just recounted everything that I have sold, and it was hilarious watching. just what I wrote down. I mean, I used to sell those Cutco knives. I've sold cell phones. I've sold technology. I've sold electricity. I've done payroll. I've gone door to door. Like you name it. Um, I've probably have sold it. I've done B2B, B2C. And again, I've done it through distribution, all on my own services. So I consider myself the entreployee. If
Hmm.
anyone has ever heard that term, if you haven't, you heard it here first, and I'll just coin it for myself. No, but I do consider myself an entreployee, and I can do either or. And I think most people in the world are.
Mm,
Uh, we're not all just one thing.
no. So before we jump into today's topic, and we might delve into, as we talk before we press record, a little bit about financial stewardship as well.
Yeah.
I'd love your take, because I haven't asked you this question. Your take on sales. Um, I like asking a lot of sales leaders in particular about what they think about sales and do they like being sold to. When you think of sales, and you just described have been across many different industries, selling many different products and services. When you think of sales, what's the first thing that pops up for you?
Ooh, that is such a great question. As soon as you said that, because I come from this world, I think I am biased because it's what I want to position for each and every one of the people that I train, the companies that I speak to, all the keynotes that I've done. It's actually two words, but by a hyphen, problem solving.
Yeah, nice.
To me, sales is problem solving.
Love it. Um, that's probably why we get on so well, because I often use the same definition.
Do you really? I
I
mean,
do. I do.
a lot of people, here's the words I typically hear. If you are on the buyer side, people say, giving me something I don't want
Yeah.
because if you have to sell it, it means I probably don't want it.
Mm,
If I'm on the sales side, a lot of people say trusted advisor, consultation, um, persuasiveness,
mm,
things of that nature, right? Leading to, guiding, things of that nature. So I've heard a lot of different thoughts. When you think about sales history, though, prior to, I think it was the Industrial Revolution, we'll call this early 1900s and before,
mm,
my understanding of sales history is that sales was looked at as one of the most noble professions because they were educators.
mm,
Because these were the people that if you had a product or service, you had to go to the salesperson to learn about anything. That's
mm,
number one. Number two is because we didn't have the same modes of transportations. These were the people that were on the road, that would go door to door, that would go village to village. And that's hard work because the
yeah.
salespeople were away from their family, much like they are today, but it's not as fast and, the overnights and you can come back.
Mm,
Sometimes these people would take their merchandise with them and be gone for months,
mm,
and they would have to come back. That's a lot of sacrifice to be able to put a family through. So when you think about salespeople from a history perspective, it was a very, very sacrificial and noble profession to spread ideas,
yeah.
products, and services.
So it's interesting you talk about that because I was listening to something not long ago, and they're talking about the origin of the word sales, and it goes way back, whether it's Greek mythology or Latin or whatever the case might be, and the actual meaning of sales is to help, to serve, and that sort of makes sense as you're talking about at the turn of the century. The salespeople on their wagons or the horse and cart would be doing that and making that sacrifice, but they'd be serving and selling and helping and solving problems. Over time, though, as you have alluded to, and as we've talked about before, it's kind of taken on a more of a negative
Mhm.
connotation. And you mentioned before we press record the financial stewardship, and you mentioned a quote that one of your colleagues shared with you around, and I won't try to repeat it,
Yeah.
but essentially not wanting to have your salespeople have commission breath because it marks
Yeah.
aspiration. And the fact that from a buyer's perspective, often they might think, well, sales is you're going to try to sell me something that I don't want or don't need. Versus if we flip the mentality, and we'll talk you about the mentality around Mamba in a second. If we flip it and say, well, hang on, I might have a solution to a problem, but I don't know whether it's going to be fit until I understand whether you have a problem and whether you need to and want to solve that problem. Because if you don't, hey, we're just going to have a conversation and we'll make a connection.
So, actually, that conversation, the reason I was even thinking about this idea was actually stemming from this idea of what Mamba mentality actually is. So, for those listening, when you think about Kobe and where Mamba mentality came from, it was his desire to be better each and every day. And that's how he defined what is Mamba mentality. And if you can get better every day, if you have this quest, if you have this desire every single day to grow, then guess what? You have the Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
That's the general nature. In one of those areas of life that we think about, usually when we think about growth, success, most people, at least in the Western half of the world, is around money, wealth, and in sales specifically, it
Mm.
is one of the higher paid professions. And why do
Yeah.
people get into sales? A lot of times it's the money.
Yeah.
They want to make more money. But what I find is they want to make more money, but then they don't know how to manage the money that they make. And it creates this vicious cycle. And what I have personally found out from experience and from what I have actually seen is that the most financially secure individuals are typically better sellers. Now, the word better is by definition probably a bit subjective
Yeah.
because I'm not saying they always sell the most.
Mm.
But I do believe from a buyer's perspective, they are the type of people that people want to buy from more often than not. And here's how I'll give the explanation. We are in a world where it's so competitive. Every company wants to grow margin, grow market share, sell, 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 grow, 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 that sort of thing. And then you have all this pressure on these sellers to hit a quota so they
Yeah.
don't get fired. Well, guess what? If you're not financially stable, you feel this pressure, AKA commission breath, to take on any deal that you possibly want
Yeah.
or you possibly can. And you'll lie, cheat, steal. And I'm not saying this in all reality. I'm just saying there is more of an incentive to do those sorts of behaviors just to get a deal across the line.
Mm.
But if you don't need the deal, it comes across. And so, this area of financial stewardship, financial stability, financial security is an area of the Mamba mentality,
Mm.
one of many areas. But this is why, even for as a sales leader or as a seller,
Mm.
the real growth that we have to have every day is to look at ourselves and say, what type of company do I actually want to work for? Do I want to work for a company that is driven by a P&L or driven by a mission, and therefore the P&L looks great because they are trying to hit that mission?
Yeah.
And I only have really come to this realization in the later stages of my career. I wish I had come to that early on, but I didn't. And you will see a unique and not so subtle difference between those types of sellers in those two environments.
Mm. It's interesting you talk about that because the pressure that comes from the chief revenue officer or the sales director or the sales leader, for many of them, they've been thrust into that role because they were a great seller and they've probably been working in an environment where it's sell at all costs, close the deal, get the number. The pressure becomes either implied or direct. So the attitude is almost, well, hey, yes, build the relationship, but get the number. Don't build the relationship and not get the number because relationships don't pay for the bills. So it's
Yeah.
literally numbers first. And when you look at the sustainable organizations, it's the ones that can actually marry up, I guess, the fit for the marketplace, the ability to provide after sales service, but the ability to also build relationships because they recognize that the sale will begin after the first sale is made. And so they have customers that hopefully become raving fans, and therefore they have salespeople who build relationships and they continue to invest in those relationships,
Mhm.
not just goes to the customer after the first interaction. And so that, but
Yeah.
that takes leadership, and that takes the vision to be very obviously big, but specific and linked to what are the behaviors we want to see in our team and in our business, including from our leadership.
You hit the nail on the head. And you know, when we talk about concepts like these, it's easy to speak in our homes from a pedestal and say, oh, we got to be mission oriented. But the truth is, we need currency, we need money to pay bills and all these
Yeah.
sorts of things. Everyone's always looking for something to make it. There's human, just pure the way that we are built, where we want to be better than the next. And it's that competitive drive. So it's easy to say that, but all
Mm.
companies, you kind of have to be profitable.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then guess what? You're either growing or you're dying. That's the general sentiment, right? So it's easy to say it, but what I will say is this. If companies can get to a place where they genuinely are starting because they have a mission, they drive through that. I think of like lifestyle companies,
Mm.
right? Um, but again, if it's all just about the investors, the dollars, the profits, and that is number one, you unless the product is something that is just absolutely the world needs, then it just happens to coincide. But yeah, I've seen both sides of it, and I actually have seen even public companies, and I've seen some CEOs that will just tell investors, we are going to literally not worry about the P&L, not worry about the stock price, and we're just going to do the right thing. And they get blasted, their stock price goes down, but their employees are happy. They seem to stay profitable. And at the end of the day, like they're continuing to thrive, right? So I have seen both sides of that.
So is there, because we mentioned earlier there's a big turnover in sales, and you also mentioned marketing as well. There's a big turnover in marketing. Um, I mean, how do you see this, particularly with AI? Because I reckon there's a lot of this implied pressure where you do have businesses that are not necessarily focused on the mission or the vision. They might say the words, they might have the big vision statements and the values that
Yeah.
they put up all around the business, but their behaviors say, no, no, we're about the bottom line because we've got to keep our shareholders happy. Um, what are you seeing in terms of the future in relation to this, right? Because with AI coming in, a lot of uncertainty, the macroeconomic climate that's existing, there's just so much complexity in the world today.
Yeah. Here's my 2 cents. And I am probably going to get hate mail for this, but I'm going to say what I believe is the truth. Now, part of Mamba mentality is being willing to get better each and every day. So 5 years from now, I might eat those words, and I'm okay with that.
Hmm.
Because based on my understanding today, I speak based out of that. I
Yep.
am 100% being wrong 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that sort of thing. But here's my take on let's first start with the sales community as a whole. Take all of the sellers on the planet. Personal opinion, probably only about 40% of all of those people should even be in sales.
Yeah.
About 60% of them have no business being in sales because it's not their true passion. Because remember, Mamba mentality is getting better each and every day. They don't study, they don't invest in themselves. They just want the cash,
Yeah.
but they don't want to put in the investment of themselves, their time to get better. They look at it more as a hobby than as a profession. So that's one thing. So we'll start there. Then, when you think about that 40%, you have the top performers, the top percentage that they are just made for this, right? When you think about AI and all this, the way that I look at it for sales specifically is very similar to travel agents. And here's what I mean by that. When Priceline, Orbitz, Travelocity, all these websites came out, travel agents' businesses started to tank. And they
Hmm.
did tank because everyone was like, I don't have to go to a human being. I can go online and get
Yep.
what I need. But over time, there was a website for everything you possibly can imagine. And when you, as a human, are trying to go after this, you have to trust what's out there is real. That's one. But then what happens is you start seeing sponsored ads. You start looking at reviews. You wonder what is the reality? Is what they're saying the truth, or did somebody pay them to say that? Then all of a sudden you start seeing travel agents come back on the rise because as a human, I want to speak to another human
Mm.
who can help me go through all of this information. But more importantly, the travel agents that were really doing well in today's society and economy are the ones who have actually been there and can say, hey, Darren, I went to this resort in Bora Bora. In Sydney, I went to this hotel. In Japan, this is the restaurant that I personally went to and liked and
Yeah.
had experience. And now you're talking human to human again. My personal opinion with sales in general with AI is you will have some form of that where, guess what? Yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better because everyone's going to have an AI for that. You're going to have AI talking to AI, but I feel like what's going to end up happening is the very depth of our soul is going to feel empty and alone. And I'm not saying anything that I don't think anybody else is thinking or
Yeah.
saying. Like this isn't, I mean, a lot of people believe this, right?
Mm.
But I just think it's going to go like this and it'll come back up. But what's really going to happen is, like in any recession or any economy where it goes up and down, you'll have kind of the lower performers, we'll call it in sales, that'll kind of get washed away.
Yeah.
You'll have the top performers that can have a conversation, that can network, that can generate relationships or meetings from nowhere, that are trusted. They'll stick around. Then when the AI wave kind of levels out, they'll be at the like it's just the chasm between how they say the rich and the poor.
Yeah.
It's only going to get wider between the haves and the have-nots, between the top performers and the people that are just there for a paycheck.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just the way that I see that it happening. So take on the Mamba mentality and get as good
Good.
as you possibly can get because a lot of people aren't willing to put in the work. But that's why this is so important in sales, especially.
Well, it's really interesting you say that, and coming back to the statistics you're talking about 40%, and how a lot of people are in sales because maybe it's the allure of the big the status, the number one club, the I don't know, the responsibility that comes with that, the big commission checks, the beautiful cars, and all that sort of stuff, right? But not necessarily realizing there's hard work to be done, and it just doesn't come because you turn up.
Yeah.
You've
Or
got
just because you can speak well and you talk, that's the old adage, right? Well, I don't have a technical background. I didn't do this. Like, you're good with people. Go into sales.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting you talk about that because when the other question I often ask people is, how do you describe a salesperson? And often they say, oh, you've got to be an extrovert and you've got to have the gift of the gab and you've got to be able to talk. And I say, well, what's really interesting, my experience, and I'll be interested in your take, is some of the best salespeople that I've worked with and who have worked for me are actually introverts. They don't like talking to people, but they're very good at listening and they're very good at problem solving.
So I actually think there's two sides to this, and I think it determines, and you can be both and be exceptional. If you're in B2C and it's a short, transactional, very quick sale, I
Mm,
do think many times the extroverts, that's where you see that, and people assume that being an extrovert, oh, they're a salesperson
mm,
because they're one-on-one. They're creating a conversation. Maybe it's a small ticket item, and it's like, you're selling cologne, and you're like, hey, you want some of the spray? And those people, and people think about like car salesmen, and that's the old joke. When you think about the longer the sales process, the more complex, the more B2B,
mm.
typically I see introverts, and it's not actually introverts, it's perceived introverts. I think it's a different type of brain, like an engineering process oriented brain that knows how to go through a buying process with someone. Notice I said buying process, not
Yeah,
selling process. And they're getting better uniquely at every single portion. They say, this is how I can generate a net new conversation. Okay, you know what? The fortune is in the follow up. And there's so much learning to be had the more complex and longer the sales cycle is that they have to dig in.
Mm.
and they can't just wing it. It's not about personality. It is actually about doing lengthy due diligence, reading, work, and all that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's where I think the two ends are in terms of the economy's perception of who's good at sales and who's not. But I think that's where it kind of stems from.
And I love that. And certainly in the B2B space, I mean, the importance of having a strong pipeline, a value pipeline, a quality pipeline is important because when you do have that, you know that buyers will buy according to their own buying cycle. They're not necessarily going to buy according to your selling cycle, but you've got enough in there so you don't have that desperation that comes then with the commission breath, that you're going to be there to serve. You're going to be there maybe to prod and to encourage and maybe to suggest and maybe to ask for the sale. But there's this disassociation that happens from I'm not wedded to Stephen actually making a buying decision today because I have to get my number. I'm more interested in how can I guide him through the next phase of his buying process so that he's comfortable with the progress we're making, but also create a little bit of, I guess, discomfort that, hey, we are
Mm.
going to do something because we can't just have a nice conversation and let it go for two years. So there has to be a bit of a balance there, which all comes back
Yeah,
to your relationships you're building.
you're spot on. It's not just the relationship building. I would go back to this idea of process. And I'm going to share something that I learned. You see the book over my shoulder for those that will ever see the video. If you're listening on audio, over my right shoulder is the Mamba Mentality book by Kobe. And if you hear by Kobe Bryant, and if you hear anybody speak about Kobe, they always talk about his relentless work ethic. That
Mm,
is what he is known for. And he even talks about it that he doesn't have the highest vertical leap. He's not the fastest or the quickest. He doesn't have like he has great athletic ability, but he doesn't have the largest hands. Like there was nothing in his repertoire that he was really number one in terms of just natural ability. So he always knew he had to work harder than anyone else. And
mm,
I do believe he is probably, if not one of the most skilled basketball player of all time. That word skill, though, some people will argue because then they'll say, no, no, Jordan was the best or LeBron was the best. No, I'm talking about skill. And my definition of skill is learned behavior over time so you can optimally execute with precision.
mm.
When you have just natural talent, you can just be better than everybody else because you're bigger, stronger, faster, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I give him the nod in terms of being the most skilled because I know how hard he had to work.
Yeah,
It's the same thing in sales. When I look for the best sellers, I want to see how they work on each little component of the process. For example, I don't know if anyone's ever heard this story about Kobe when I think he was 12 or 13. He went to a basketball camp for a summer and he just wanted to work on one thing, his left hand. He went the entire camp with only using his left hand. He would dribble left, he'd spin left, he'd do everything, he'd shoot left because he was dead set on making sure that that wasn't going to ever be a handicap for him. And he was working on this one little thing in his game.
hmm
And that's how sales is. You have to work on each component, each step, each point, portion of the process, and then you get better over time. And again, most people aren't willing to do that. They'll have a couple good years and then they'll stop with the process. And that's the whole point of Mamba Mentality is you've got to get better each and every day.
each and every day. I love that. So let's talk about some of the key principles around that. So we've started with obviously get better today than we were tomorrow, but not as good as we're going to be tomorrow. Presupposing there's always something we're working on, we're fine tuning the craft, and this happens over time because as John Maxwell says, consistency compounds over time. Um,
Yeah.
if you were to dissect the book or the I guess the approach from Kobe from Mamba Mentality, applying it to sales leadership and to selling, what are for you the I guess the key components?
One is I'm never competing with anyone else. I'm only competing with the yesterday version of myself. I
Wow.
so that's one. I don't think he actually said it that way, but that's how I interpret it. Um, so that's one. Number two is when people say the joy is in the journey, I think if you think that as an empty platitude, it just means you don't have enough experience yet. Because the only people that can actually say that and understand it is people who have been through the journey and have gotten to a destination.
Yeah.
So if you do not understand what that means and you're like, no, I just want to get to the destination, you still have a lot of work to do. So the joy is truly in the journey. And when you look back, there is no such, the reason you figure this out later on in your career is you realize there really is no destination. Because every time you get further ahead, the cheese moves, the destination moves. The world just gets bigger and there's just more. And you realize, holy heck, it reminds me of being a teenager and you think you know everything. And your parents will tell you this and they'll say, oh, you'll learn when you get older. And you think that they don't know what they're talking about. And the more you know what actually happens,
Yeah.
the more you realize you don't know. And that's one of the things of another component of Mamba mentality. But let me just stop at those two because I'm curious your feedback after you hear that.
Well, I'd like to delve into both of those, and the first one is I love the fact that you're competing only with yourself, and that is how do I get better? How do I set my own benchmarks? How do I set my own expectations, and how do I measure myself according to those? Because in sales, if you think about it, most organizations and most sales leaders that are listening to this right now are probably working in a team environment where there's some form of scoreboard. There's some form of sales campaign that's being run that we want to incentivize the number one salesperson or the top 10%, whatever the case might be, which almost encourages comparison against everybody else.
Mhm.
So if you understand that you're in a competitive environment, but you're not there to beat somebody else, you're there to
Mhm.
contribute to somebody else. So how can you be a better servant and make the team member a better person? Then the only
Yeah.
person you've got to really think about is how do I get better today? And what can I do to add more service and improve my skill set, my capability, my mentality. I love that.
Yeah, here's what I would tell for anyone. If you feel like you're in a competitive environment, I mean, you are. It is the truth because that's how businesses work. But if you personally are getting better every day and you're working on your craft, you will always be generating revenue. I truly believe that. The reason we look at others, in my opinion, at this stage of my life and career, I finally realized this,
Hmm.
is you look at those people who are ahead of you to simply go learn from, not to compete with, but
Yeah.
to gain an understanding, to support them, to invest in them, and then also learn back. Like that's just how life works.
Mm.
But you're never going to be better than someone because you're not them. It actually, if you think about it, logically doesn't make sense because it's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
We're different human beings. You can't be better than them. It's not the same thing.
No.
Which is better, an apple or an orange? That's a dumb question, right? Maybe not. Some people will be like, well, they'll pick one or the other, but like you just can't compare the two. They're just different.
Well, and I love that because when you look at somebody who is ahead of you, and there are people that perhaps are a little bit jealous of the fact that, oh, and you see this in sales teams all the time. He's got the good accounts, he's got the good leads, he's got better relationships. All the people want to work with Steve. Why doesn't anybody want to work with me? How come I get all the bad leads? That's
Yeah.
just flawed thinking. And it's almost like, well, you've got more of an external locus of control versus taking control for what you can do and what you're in control of in terms of your thinking and your planning. So
Yeah.
I love the fact that you say, well, look at people who are maybe 2 steps, 4 steps, 10 steps ahead of you. Look at what they're doing. But I
Mhm.
would even go so far as to say, understand what's their thinking process, how do they plan, what's the mentality, how do they approach certain
Yeah.
problems, what's their strategy to identify that and elicit that, because then you can install a strategy without having to compare yourself to that person, because that person may be an orange and you might be a pear.
Yeah. 100%. Now, I will give credence to something you said because sometimes is it true that someone has better accounts? Absolutely. Because they're different. They could be better. Whatever better is definitionally, most people say it's because they're buying and they have a
Yeah.
need for our product, so they're just going to buy the product. Sure. Somebody could have better accounts.
Mm.
Here's the way that I look at it. Why do you stay in an account set then if it's not good? If you were really that great of a seller, you would understand how to define what great accounts are. You would figure out and be smart enough to say, here's a product out there in the marketplace. There's an open territory, and I'll go get a different job because I'm smart enough to realize this territory doesn't have the ripeness, whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
And oh well, oh by the way, that seller, he ain't giving up that territory because he knows it's a great territory. That's part of Mamba mentality is recognizing the scenario.
Mm.
And so when a seller, I know this is going to sound horrible, but the way that I think about it is if a seller really has bad accounts, why are they still working those accounts? Why haven't they
Yeah.
found another job yet?
Yeah.
If it's really the accounts.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I think about when a lot of sellers complain. Because if they were that great of a seller, what, I mean, I'm saying this somewhat, this sounds like I'm being a jerk, and that's not the point. Because I'm saying it from a utopian concept and philosophy right now, and I know it's not actually like this. I'm just trying to get people to think. If people don't know my background, I love to talk about metacognition, which means I challenge people to think
Yeah.
about how they're thinking about how they're thinking. So that's the reason I say it the way that I say it, not to really tick anyone off and not to say I don't have empathy. But the
No, you,
point
you
being
take you
is,
take people into the matrix.
yeah, like right, just start thinking about it and say, man, if I was such a great seller and it's just the territory problem, then there's a lot of turnover in sales. There's a lot of sales jobs that are open right now.
Yeah.
Why are you stuck in this one? Sales is the one place there's always openings.
100%. And you can take that quote unquote poor portfolio, although poor set of accounts, and hand them to somebody else, and all of a sudden these are this is untouched. This is fertile land. This is
Yeah.
incredible. And all of a
You
sudden,
you know the shoe
Africa.
sales story, right?
Yeah, the one that went to Africa.
Exactly. So most people have heard that. And so that's the point. Is like
But it's
we see
perception,
it
right?
all the time. Get a
Yeah,
new
so that
seller, all of a sudden new results.
totally, totally. So I love that. Only compare yourself to yourself and the person staring back, and compete with yourself.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the next one, the joy in the journey. And yes, we've heard everybody, and you might have quotes written up on your board somewhere, the motivational quotes, success is a journey,
Yeah.
which it is. But as you said, I think a lot of people actually give it a bit of lip service and they'll just say it without necessarily understanding true essence of what it means.
Yeah.
What we do know for people who have been through challenges, whether it be health challenges, financial challenges, challenges in business, cycles in business, and so forth, there's blips on the radar. There's troughs and there's peaks and there's valleys and there's everything in between. But I look at that as it's staying power, and I look at, and this comes
Mhm.
back to what you were saying before in terms of your metacognition, your thinking, right? When you're going through something, what is that actually meaning for you? What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
Is it an opportunity, or is it going to stop you?
So I'm gonna take a completely different approach to talking about the joys in the journey. And this may be a longer portion of the segment. So put it on 2x speed because I might be talking for a minute because I think the way that I'm going to articulate this might be the first time I'm able to do this, and I'm practicing in the moment. So whoever's hearing this, it's the first time you're probably hearing me ever articulate this because I've been thinking about this a lot. And last year, this was August of 2024, I had walked away from corporate America again, I guess, because I had done it back in like 10, 15 years prior. And I had done well for myself because of, Microsoft and a lot of different things and 25 years of doing this, right? I had young kids and I had decided, you know what? Like while they're young, let me spend some time with them while I have the ability to. I'm very clear that I was privileged, blessed, and not everyone can do that. But here's what actually happened. And this is why I really can understand this idea of the joys in the journey.
Mm.
When I walked away, I was spending time with the kids, and within like a week, I almost had a mental breakdown because I was so bored and I did not know what to do. And when you are used to living a high achieving life, doing something every day, feeling like you're productive, and
Yeah.
again, productivity means, different things to different people. But I was in a different stage of my life, and I was working 80 hours a week. Now I'm not. So when I had this sort of like mental, just what am I doing? I feel like, this pity party and all this other stuff. I realized something. No matter how much, like, not that I'm a billionaire, but I have actually wondered, why do billionaires still work?
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, I believe there's something innate in us as human beings where we have to feel like we're contributing, we have to feel like we're growing. And for me, I have to feel like I'm generating revenue or doing something of value because that's just the world that I come from.
Mm.
And so very quickly, I realized that it doesn't matter how much money that I have, I'm always going to want to continue to work. So, what was the point at my younger age of trying to chase the money? Because whether or not I have billions or not, I'm going to do something daily, weekly, monthly, annually
Mm.
that probably will generate revenue. So, how much money do I really need if for the rest of my life I'll probably do something? And that answer was, well, number one, just whatever my daily, monthly needs are. Because most people financially, and this is
Yeah.
going to go back to financial stewardship, really, most people live on a monthly basis. So as long as you make enough money to pay your monthly bills, you're going to be in perpetuity, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
So what's the goal financially? Don't have as many monthly bills. It's called a math equation. What people don't see though, if they didn't know my life, they don't know that for 25 years, there were times where I didn't have a bed. I didn't have a couch. I lived meagerly. Like if people know what Redbox is, that would be my monthly treat. Redbox is a old school movie dispensing machine that it cost $1 to watch a movie. That's how little money that I spent. And I went through a grind
Mm.
to make sure and pay off all the debt that I had so I could walk debt free. And so I don't have to worry about all these things. Now, again, there was a lot of sacrifice that happened. And I'm not saying for anyone to be like, yay, Stephen, you're so great. That's not my point.
No.
My point is that journey sucked.
Yeah.
So, what I realized about the joys in the journey is this: if I would have early on, and I have a new formula for success that I believe. People used to say, "Oh, chase your passions and then you'll do well." Okay, first of all, that's a load of crap because here's an example. If you're passionate about books and you want to be rich and you say, "I'm going to go be a librarian," that equation probably is not going to add up properly for you, okay? But if you can figure out your passions, align that with your strengths, and then make sure it is monetizable, you can go from books to starting Amazon.com.
Mm.
Two very different things. So I 100% believe that you should chase your passions. The
Mm.
joy is in the journey. So
Mm.
for me, for example, what did I decide to do? I worked with my business coach and she asked me one very specific question. She goes, "What do you absolutely love doing?" Thought about it and I was like, I got a few ideas. And she goes, "Also, what are you ridiculously good at?" And I thought about it. I said, "Well, God's only gifted me with three things. Everything else in life I suck at." Right. And she starts laughing and she goes, "Okay, what are the three things?" And I go, "Number one is on stage public speaking. I think God just gave me a natural talent. I do work at it. I have had, education on it. I've practiced over the years. I've got 20 years of public speaking. Like I'm ridiculously good on stage to the
Yeah.
point I almost think I'm arrogant because I believe that if someone paid me $1 million, said 5 minutes before, hey, go on stage and make something up, that crowd would get way more than $1 million of value. It's just something innately in me. The second thing is coaching and leadership, and the third thing is sales. Those are my three things. That's all I got. I try
Yep.
to be a good father, try to be a good husband, try to be a good I'm decent at everything else, but man, I'm good at these other three things, right? And she laughs and she goes, well, good thing is all three of those are monetizable. So I'm passionate about being on stage and moving audiences to impact them to better their lives, make sure they can walk away with actions that will help them go generate revenue. So when
Mm,
someone puts me on stage, that audience walks away getting what they needed, right? So passion, strength, because I love speaking on stage because I love seeing light bulbs go on.
yeah.
Passion, strength, and it's monetizable. And oh, by the way, I could be 70 years old. God forbid I lose my voice or something like that. As long as I can speak, I can generate revenue.
Hmm.
And so if I would have just done this and worked on this craft at 16 onward, right? The joy is in the journey
Yeah.
because I'm passionate, it's strength and it's monetizable. So that's where I feel like now I have the tactical understanding of that, but most people haven't been able to articulate it to someone,
Mm.
and therefore it becomes an empty platitude to make someone feel better. Oh, the joy is in the journey. Oh, you feel good. Here you go. And you pat them on the head or something like, no, that's probably not the intent. It's really the intent of getting better each and every day. It really is Mamba mentality at its core.
And sometimes you'll end up maybe making mistakes, um not having the mojo that particular day, but knowing that you got to do it anyway because it is a strength. But even because we've said it before, you never arrive. So yes, you're fantastic on stage. Yes, you've got a passion for stuff on stage, but you never, and I know this about you, you never say, well, I've arrived, baby. This is,
Because you never do.
you
It's
never do.
impossible.
Because you're always thinking, how can I? And I know this because we were doing debriefs after the sessions we were running in Vegas in December. We are doing debriefs of what worked, what we do differently, how do we improve tomorrow, how do we improve the next session. So you're always doing that because you never actually arrive, which means the joy is in not just the experiences you've created, but in the anticipation of what's to come tomorrow.
Spot on. And I still remember those debriefs because purposely I wanted to sit next to our buddy Alan on purpose because I was trying to soak up everything. Plus, I could not understand his accent half the time, but that's beside that's beside the point. I really hope he sees this episode. But the point is, there was so much in him that he I could learn from that I wanted to soak up literally as much as I possibly could.
Mm,
And if I can take from that, implement it, go to the next person, implement it, yourself. That's why I was asking, well, what was different in your room? When I was talking to Andy, I talked to all these different speakers, and I'm just trying to pick up what's different. When Charlie was doing his magic trick, I was like, show me. I want to see how to do this. Maybe I can add this into my next thing. A magic trick for crying
yes.
out loud.
Yes.
Always look for something else. And that's the one thing I always learned about Kobe. And this is where I started to respect him, whether you like him or dislike him. My thing about people is this, and this is actually what the chameleon effect, a lot of it was about in the book, is how do you search out in people the greatness, the things that you love, the things that you can pull out of them, the genius. And one of the things that I personally, why I respect who he is was because of his work ethic.
Mm,
And I've always swore to myself that no one on my team will work harder than me,
yeah.
even as a leader. Now, it has backfired. So let me be very clear that I'm not saying this is always a good thing. But my leadership thought process was I never want one of my sellers to feel that I'm calling it in and I don't work hard. But I've also seen the other side of it where when you work harder than everyone else, especially if you're the leader,
Mm,
they feel burnt out because they have to keep up.
That's
So
it.
I've even learned that there's wisdom in like the balance of how you show it.
Mm.
But for me, is I just never wanted to be the person that somebody was like, ah, he's not a hard worker. People will be like, work smart, not hard. I'm just like, no, why don't you just do both? The one
Do
thing I
both.
can, yeah,
But also work hard on being, but work hard at being reflective, work hard at being decompressed, work hard at when you're with your family, work hard. When you're with the kids, when you're with the boys, when you're with Stacy, work hard at being the best husband, the best father, the best person, best human, right?
yeah,
It's all
spot
work
on.
in progress. Because you'll never reach perfection because it means that you're
100%.
always striving.
That's why
So
they say
mate,
progress over perfection.
absolutely, absolutely. So I know we're getting short on time, but if there was another one we wanted to cover off around that, so we've covered a few. If there was another one that was probably sort of top of mind that you'd want to sort of put on the table, what would that be?
Talking about from a Mamba mentality
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah.
Oh, this is so good. What you start to realize in what I got from Kobe's life, and if people don't know his story, not only was he a phenomenal basketball player, he did work hard in a lot of areas. He ended up winning, was it an Oscar for, his basketball short? He had a private equity company. He coached his girls. He had four girls, coached his girls' basketball team. Like there was a lot of things that he wanted to be great at. But what you can also realize is you can chase a lot of different things. And if you recognize where your strengths are really good, what he always did is he hired someone to help him. He never did it on his own, as much as you may think he did.
Mm,
Part of Mamba mentality is surrounding yourself with those people, outsourcing and saying, who did it better?
yeah.
And not just not going at it alone. What's the African proverb? We're full of like stale quotes in this episode, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That sort of thing. But I do think that was one of the things he always surrounded himself with people that he could do it with. Even though he was kind of a bit of a loner, if he had a goal, he'd find the best.
And I think that's a great way to end this episode actually, because when you think about sales leadership can actually be quite a lonely existence, and particularly if you're in a highly competitive environment, sometimes it feels as if I can't confide in my fellow sales leader because they might take it as an advantage and as a competitive advantage
Yeah,
to use against me, but finding people within your network, and this is what you're really good at, is people who are there to want to help you, but who you can help. So there's a marrying up of capabilities, mindset, thinking, strategy, vision that people you can build trusting relationships with, who you can be, and I mean, this word vulnerability is used just, it's a throwaway
yeah,
line now, but who you can be yourself with, be a human with, and say, you know what, I'm not feeling it. I don't have all the answers. Help me. And they are there to serve you. They are there to help you. They're there to give you a clip around the ear if you need it sometimes, but they're there to serve you. So be very, very clear on who you surround yourself with is the key message there.
that's I think we just mic drop.
Mate, so I love speaking to you, and we've got to make sure that it's not 8 months before we do the next one. Um, so for people who have listened to this, and we encourage them also to go back and listen to episode 744 back in January uh, 25. If you listen to this on any of the podcasting platforms, just type in the name Stephen Oommen, it'll come up, podcast. For people who want to connect with you now, Stephen, and keep track of all the good work you're doing and the value you're creating in the marketplace, as well as, of course, to get a heads up on when the Chameleon Effect or title to be confirmed soon, whatever the book title is going to be. Where can they connect with you and learn more about what you do, my friend?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. I do have open messaging, so even if you just follow me, even if we're not first connected, DM me. It's like that is what I love to do is to network. And if you have a company, if you have a sales kickoff, a leadership retreat, if you need someone to come in and speak to your group, to actually get movement, behavior change, skills change. That's what I do. So bring me in to speak. Let's chat. Let's see what we can do to help the company out. But the first thing is it starts with a conversation, and that's the thing about networking. You just got to have it one conversation at a time sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll make sure that's all in the show notes. I'll finish with this because I heard you on a, I'm not sure whether it was a podcast or there was a video, and I might misquote you, but you literally were saying you don't know you don't know the next connection, the next opportunity. So the people that you have connections with,
Yep.
you don't know. I think there was something like you're one connection away from everything changing, or one connection
Yeah.
away from your opportunities exploding, your business exploding.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
All right. So there's two ways to look at this. The networking today. So networking is the solution to a problem years from now that you did not know you were going to have. But if you have the problem in a couple of years and you didn't do the networking, you won't have the solution. So that's
Mm,
one way to look at it. And then the other thing is you are just one relationship away from your entire life changing because
yeah,
that's all it takes is one relationship.
love it, mate. You're talking about mic drop. Ooh, that is a big mic drop. Stephen, I do appreciate. I know it is now getting late, and I think is it 10:20
No,
p.m.
it's it's
9:20.
9:20 p.m. Here in the States. And but like I said, it's a global economy. If you're listening to this in Australia, hey, fly me out there so I can speak to your teams. I would love to
That's
to come to
right.
Australia.
And by the way, if you're flying Stephen out to Australia, you need to make sure that I'm there as well to carry his bags, to make sure that he's got all the things he needs in his green room, and I'll make sure he's taken care of.
Oh, I love it. I am the least amount of diva. All I need is myself and some clothes, and we're good.
I know, mate, I know. But hey, I do greatly appreciate it. It's always lovely to speak to you, and thank you so much for being a return guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. And all the best to Stacey and the kids, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks, bud. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.